Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another ARPneuro Q&A. I'm Jake, and of course, with us, as always, is the Maverick, Matt Dell. Good to see you again, Matt. How are you doing, sir?
Fantastic. Seriously digging the music at the intro music, the wait music.
I know it's good stuff. I wish we could put some like jazzy blues on there, but you don't get those options. I guess we can make something like that.
Yeah, no, I love it. Well,
Yeah.
Good. I'm looking forward to it. I know we got a lot of people on tonight, so that's a good, exciting thing. We got a lot of people out there with a lot of questions on both the RX and the PRS. So really excited about tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's fire up the slides. So before we begin, just as always, you can always check us out at ARPneuro.com. That's going to give you a lot of insight if you're not familiar with this technology. This will familiarize you with a lot of that, with videos and a lot of the athletes that actually use it. And you can also reach out to us at info@ARPneuro.com. No excuses. We are always around and ready to answer questions. So make sure you keep them coming. This one, as you can see, we have advanced warm-up and recovery. Some of this we've actually talked about, but this delves into a little deeper of the protocols that I use with a lot of the pro athletes, and we've been using it for quite some time. So I'm pretty excited about that. And, you know, before we begin, I have to say this, Matt, it's not, I heard you did a foot bath this weekend.
I did.
And I'm just curious how you feel since then.
Fantastic. Love it. Love it. Love it. Needed it, had some issues going, and I tell you what, felt fantastic the next day. Sat there, got to it's one of the most enjoyable, I got to tell you, one of the most enjoyable treatments, because it's not a movement based. You get to sit and kind of try to focus on watching TV or whatever, and then the blood flow feature of it is phenomenal. So I think that was I think I've got to make this part of my ritual, whether I need it or not, for, recovery, warm up. And I'm sure most of the PRS owners and or RX owners, I don't know if my wife's too happy that it's now a permanent fixture in the living room, but you know what are you going to do?
Has she tried it? Maybe she would like it. Although, and then again, she probably still doesn't want it in the living room.
No, believe it or not, she's used it for the PRS, but she's a little more organized and cleans up her stuff. I'm not that disciplined.
Well, I love it. I'm glad it worked out for you. And Matt is absolutely correct. It's actually one of the more relaxing ones. And if you haven't tried it and you do have the PRS or RX, make sure you do give it a shot, because you don't have to have foot issues to get some benefit from it. I still use it all the time, and I love it. So, all right, let's move on to this first one. The settings, as we go into this, I just want to remind you, if you do have a PRS, obviously that's going to be fixed to that pulse rate of 245 times per second. And of course, it's always going to be going from the black lead to the red lead. So that polarity is going to stay the same. So we'll go into that when we get into some of these protocols. And again, if you have any questions and you are joining us live, you can feel free to reach out to us on Streamline. I think we're also streaming on YouTube and Instagram and all the other good stuff. So you can question us there, and it'll eventually trickle back to us. If you do it early enough, we'll probably even get it live. So a lot of opportunity to reach out and ask questions if you have any.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. I think one of the easiest things that has helped people is I always tell them when they ask, okay, where do I put the black pad? Where do I put the red pad? Very simple. The red is where it stops. Black is where it starts. And so in essence, regardless of what you're trying to, whether you're just warming up or what you're trying to, any pain or issues, just remember that the current is going from the black pad to the red. And that's going to help the blood flow, and it's trying to get all the nutrients from the black pad to the red. And that's kind of the easiest way to remember on pad placements. And I think, as we've shared, Jake, and you know this, there really is no right or wrong. There's no perfect pad placement. We have so many protocols on our YouTube library, on our website, and really over the years with all of the participants, the universities that have studied this, all of our, I think we're up to probably close to 100 offices and clinics across the country.
Yep. We're
constantly working with them to get to better the protocols. And this is, we just want to bring all the solutions to everybody that has taken advantage of being a PRS owner or an RX owner.
That is well said, 100%. So pretty excited about that. Great description on the black to the red. And as you were talking, we had a question. I'm going to jump on this now because we did talk about the foot bath. So we got a question from our friend Bill. Is there any info behind how high to turn the PRS and RX up? I know on foot bath you try and put as high as you can go, but my sore gluteus maximus not to go too high. That's a great question. So you actually asked that at the perfect time because some of these protocols, actually, all of these protocols are going to ask for first sensation or light sensation or comfortable sensation. You'll hear me say that a lot today. So, not every protocol is to turn it up as much as you can tolerate. I know we say that a lot when it comes to the treatment aspect. Essentially, that is going to be representing force. The more force you can handle, the better, the quicker the changes you're going to have. But in this case, it's not about force. It's about getting blood flow, and we're talking about loosening. Especially tonight, it's going to be about loosening, getting blood flow, and also relaxation. You're trying to relax the muscle. So going too intense is going to take that away, and you're actually going to tighten it up. So great question, and this one kind of leans more on the less aggressive side, if you will. First one is, a lot of people know, we've talked about this one a lot, and it's a very basic protocol of recovery. And as you can see here, the black pads are on the bottom of the feet. And then, of course, you cross that over to the back of the shoulder. Now, once again, on the PRS, if you are using the 4-lead system, they're essentially just going to be bilateral on the same side. So, going straight up. Now, there is a way to cross the PRS. That's using the 2-lead system. You would just actually go on one foot and then cross it over to the opposite side. So it's completely up to you on how you set that up with the PRS. With the RX, you can run all 4. And once again, like Matt said, everything's stopping at the top. Black is running from the bottom. So you're essentially just drawing all that blood flow up towards the heart. This is a great one for recovery, but I have actually used this with athletes for warm-up as well because it's great for blood flow. So,
yeah, for those that haven't watched the Q&A with Project 7, I believe was the name of it, right? The Navy SEALs that did some crazy stuff. I can't even remember. I think they did 7 marathons in 7 days in 7 continents as they parachuted out of airplanes or something crazy.
Correct.
If you haven't had a chance to watch that Q&A, go to our website. They all had RXs, slept with them, could not believe that they were waking up, functioning, being able to jump out of another airplane and on another continent, run another marathon. So they really used this for the recovery and really swear by it. So
in fact, a lot of them would sleep with it on this particular setting. So kudos to them. Probably a suggestion, if you're going to do that, if you're on the bottom of your feet, put socks over it so it stays secure, and then wear a compression shirt on your upper body so the pads don't move around. So basic setup there. Now, to give you an idea, and this is a guess, I'm not entirely sure where he has that second pad, but this is Lane Johnson of the Philadelphia Eagles. We've used this picture a lot, but I like showing this because this is essentially that protocol using the PRS. He's using the 2-lead system. The first lead is on his left foot. I do believe it's crossed over to his opposite right shoulder. Now, a secondary placement you could go if you wanted to is also the back of the neck, just essentially covering that entire area where you're drawing that blood flow up. And if you have good eyes, you can also see it's in conjunction of using dry needling. He has a needle in the forehead while he's also using this PRS.
Yeah. So, on that note, Jake, if anybody has questions, we've done quite a few Q&As with offices and clinics across the country. If you have a question on how to use this with a compression sock or any other kind of modality, please share. We'd love to kind of help integrate other technologies out there that you may be using, and make sure you're optimizing whether it's your PRS or RX or other technologies for sure.
Yeah. And I like what you said in the beginning, and I'm going to kind of back up a little bit to that point, is you mentioned there's no real wrong way to do this. There's just better ways. And some of those better ways that you learn, you've created even better ways than that. So a lot of that has come from other doctors who learned the protocols and they became comfortable with them and they made them their own. And then they essentially created new protocols from that. So once you learn how the system works, don't be afraid to push the envelope beyond this. That's essentially how some of these protocols got even better.
Okay, I do have a question for you. I know it's off script, and I'm going to
Yeah,
challenge you on this one because,
sure.
in this last foot bath, as I did it, and I had the black on the the bottom of the feet, and I think I had them on my glute, the reds. Here's a question: my Achilles, on the left Achilles, I could feel it in a good way.
Mhm.
Tell me, that is that sensation because obviously maybe there was some damage or potential damage there? Why was I feeling that on my Achilles, versus anywhere other areas of the body?
Sure. So it could be a couple of things. Sometimes, especially on the first foot bath, usually the reactionary muscle is often the healthier muscle. So I would probably guess there may not have been issues with the Achilles.
Okay.
A lot of times it's usually the trauma side when you first start treatments that doesn't see a lot of the reaction because it's just not used to firing up. So that's usually where I'll often recommend you sort of adjust the balance. Didn't sound like you had to do that. I would
No.
say with your first foot bath, to feel it on the Achilles like that was probably a good thing, especially
Okay.
if you're not experiencing any injury. So that type of reaction is definitely positive.
Okay. Good.
On this next one, this one has essentially started from a pro athlete, actually a hockey player. It was taught to me by Dr. Sam Battaglia, an absolute I call him. I have now recoined him the godfather of ARPneuro treatments. I think he's unbelievable. I've learned a lot from him. He's actually the one who taught me this. I guess it came from. I'm not sure if he taught it to the hockey player or not. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say he probably did talk him through it. I changed it around a little bit just because originally this one would go on the forehead. So the black pad on the forehead, the red pad on the lower back QL area. Forehead's a little, it's questionable. It's very safe for you. I've done both. I think most people, most athletes, most patients preferred it on the back of the neck, and I think the results are very similar. You could try both. This one's very good if you're going into like a sporting event. It's great for pregame. It's great for focus. Some people like to do it even before a big meeting. I have a lawyer that I know that uses this. He actually goes on the forehead and the low back. So it's kind of completely up to you, but very similar protocol. You're just laying in this supine position, relaxing, light sensation. And I didn't say the time on the first one, but essentially these are between 5 to 20 minutes, really however long you can rest there. And sort of relax. And again, this is your focus protocol. As you can see here, black is now running downward towards that lower back. But another great setting from this recovery. And of course, sort of a focus protocol here.
We've got some questions flying in here, Jake, if you want to take a few.
Yeah, let me cover them before we get too far behind here. Let me hit this one first. Question from Natasha. After a nerve injury, my muscle has atrophied and other muscles are compensating. Do you have a protocol for muscle atrophy reversal? Good question. It's going to depend on where your muscles are atrophying. Normally I would say in this case, you just go through a traditional treatment. So I'll give an example. Let's say the atrophy was in glute area. Let's just say glute med. I would run some sort of protocol where I'm either placing on glute med or piriformis, so right on the butt cheek, and then some other secondary area. And I would mirror the other side and run through a traditional protocol. If you happen to have a PRS, you could essentially do the same thing, maybe even use it in the 2-lead system and hit it in that area that's not firing, and maybe a secondary area that kind of covers a lot of that territory. So if you don't know of a secondary area, and let's say it was glute med, I would go like glute med and hamstring, just kind of surrounding that area and just firing it up. Movement is always better. So when you're doing it, this is that case where you want to push that output power while you're doing some sort of movement.
And does it matter if you go black, red, or where would you recommend putting that?
Yeah, good question. So I would go to that main area. I would actually anchor the black pad on that main area that's actually atrophied. So if it was glute med, I would go black on glute med, and that secondary would be the red. Of course, if you are reversing it, you're essentially hitting both areas anyway. But I always do like to start with that breakdown point being the black.
Look at that, Jake. Did you see the next question that came in? It was the glute.
You see that? We're on the same connection here. That wavelength, it even connects through the internet.
Wow, that's impressive. What am I thinking right now, Jake?
I have no idea. Nothing. You're absolutely thinking. You're
No,
thinking
I'm
about
thinking about
Matt.
that sandwich that I'm going to have after this event.
That's right. You never finished it.
I love it.
We got another one here. How many times per day or week should I expect to use foot bath for optimal recovery? On a bare minimum, 2 times a week. I mean, we see better results on 3 times a week. And there's been cases, depending on what the injury is, you can essentially do it every day. Now, I don't recommend this last one for everybody, but some of the elite athletes, we are doing treatments twice a day, sometimes in the morning, sometimes in the evening. So there's a broad spectrum. I would say bare minimum, you want to do it a couple times a week. It's a good question.
On that note, Jake, I woke up after the last couple days, and it was a great sore. I mean, it felt like I did some serious exercise just after the foot bath.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. Why is that? Is that the case? It's just basically working.
Yeah, it feels passive, right? When you're just sitting there, kind of just taking it in water. But it is. I still consider it a movement protocol. It's you're still your toes are still curling. They're involuntary, but you have to breathe. So neurologically, it's exhausting because you're taking a deep breath in. You're trying to actually extend so there's some movement that you have to get involved there. And then sometimes I'll even have the patient will kind of do seated calf raises. So that coupled with that muscle contraction, and then of course you have that water that acts as a magnifier. It's just like a workout that we've talked about with all the other treatments. Very similar. You're getting that delayed onset muscle soreness. It's good soreness, but do expect that, especially in the calves. And that's the tough part.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's another question coming in. How would you use it for COPD? I'll get back to that. We're going to handle that at the end. That's going to take a little more time, and I don't want to lose slides. That's a great question. And I'm not going to ignore that. So, and if I don't get to it, I will find out that name and I'll email them. I'll try to get to that at the end of this Q&A that we're doing now. What would this help with neuropathy in the leg or foot? Yeah, absolutely. That's a really easy one. Essentially, neuropathy is something that it's bread and butter when you're actually talking about foot bath. I mean, the water again acts as a magnifier, and we've had a lot of great results for diabetic neuropathy, just in general neuropathy, and a lot of patients have been getting sensation back into their feet and feeling better, getting more balance just after the first session. Now, that first session isn't going to be lasting, but if you do keep multiple, you're essentially going to see those lasting results.
Okay. Truth or dare?
Yes.
Truth. Okay. Have you ever cried when you saw a neuropathy patient for the first time feel their feet and seeing that excitement? And how many times have you seen it?
Yeah. I've seen it 3 times. I've seen multiple treatments. We spent a lot of time in podiatry clinics in the beginning. I'll never forget this one though, because it was in Key West, Florida. I was with a rock star sales rep. Nobody gave it a chance. And within the first 5 minutes, she went down in tears. I left the room. So I'm not going to confirm or deny if I had any tears, but it was pretty emotional. And I'll never forget that one because it's the first time I saw that, and it never gets old. There was 2 other times after that, and it was the same results. It's very rewarding to see. And I love to see her reaction afterwards.
That's great. Good stuff.
Good stuff. All right, let's move on. I actually want to get through a lot of this. I do appreciate the questions though, so we can always come back to these slides. This is one that I have talked about in the past, but I wanted to bring it back just to kind of remind people. Again, we've used this a lot for a sleep protocol. So if you struggle with sleep, this is a very good one. As you can see here, the black is above, red below. You're basically just going vertically on the vagus nerve. Again, light sensation. You can even run this one on, almost close to background if you wanted to, but I still think light sensation is a better result. And this is another one that, I consider an anti-anxiety one. I have literally put this on in an airplane when it was during COVID and people wanted to remind you to put on a mask 50 times in a row. This one helped calm me from that shenanigans. So I'll never forget this one because I personally use this one a lot.
So this is basically you're putting the black on top and the red below on the PRS.
Correct. PRS or RX, you can use one lead on the RX and just essentially run it the same way.
Okay.
Again, 5 to 20 minutes or even beyond if you wanted to do
and
that.
Are you kind of cranking it up a little bit, or is it just more?
With all of these, I will say, first sensation, light sensation, or comfortable sensation. You don't want to get to the point where you're contracting your muscles like you would on a treatment, because that's reversal of what you're trying to do with the muscles. You're trying to relax them and loosen them.
All right. I'm trying this one tonight. I promise.
Yeah. I'm curious what you think of this one. And
I will do that.
Yeah. And now one thing to add to this one, if you are an athlete or if you're a doctor and you're treating athletes, or if you have a PRS and your kid is an athlete or athletes, I have also used this one, for a pregame protocol, and it wasn't on purpose. It was a lineman that liked it and said, "Hey, this made me calm." And he didn't have that same jitter that he got before the game. He actually just felt better. So he used it as a pregame warm-up. So keep that in mind as well. If you get really anxious before a big event, this is another good protocol to use. All right. Last one is the one that's a little bit more detailed, but I want to break this down. Now, on the PRS, it's the same settings, and you can just basically copy the pad placements that we're using, and don't worry about the duty cycle or the pulse frequency or anything of that nature. But the settings for this RX, you want to go to the duty cycle, and instead of being on continuous, you want to be 5 on and 1 off. Now, it's not 5 seconds, but it's a ramp of a, kind of a 5 contraction pulse rate down to sort of a 1 contraction pulse rate. So it's more like maybe 8 seconds and 3 seconds, give or take. And what it's doing is it's ramping that contraction up and it's bringing it back down. You're essentially squeezing it and opening it up. I go to 40 on this one because it isolates those muscles a lot better. So you're essentially, in my opinion, you're replicating that myofascial release, but I think it's a lot better because you're just getting a lot more blood flow into those areas. So those are the settings for that. If it's the PRS, you're just going to kind of, mirror these particular pad placements. So here we go on this first one. Now, what you'll find in all these settings is we're essentially just starting at the base and we're working our way up. Here's the 2 I like to use to start off. So you have the red on the kind of front of your calf tibialis anterior. And instead of going right on the calf muscle, I have the black going horizontally right on that back of your knee pit area, sort of that popliteus muscle. And, 2 sets of 10 reps, either plantar dorsiflexion with your feet, or you can just do calf raises. And then you reverse the current and run through it again. If you have the PRS, you don't have to necessarily switch the pads. If you don't want to, you can just move to the next step. Another thing to add, I have been working with an athlete every Saturday. We actually do this as a recovery protocol day. So instead of 2 sets of 10 reps, we do about 5 minutes on the normal and then 5 minutes on the reverse. It turns out to be a good solid 20 to 30 minute sort of recovery day, and he loves it. And I actually do it with him. I've turned out to almost get addicted to this one. So all these pad placements, I wanted to push this just because I see how good of the results that we have been seeing. So next step after this, and you're keeping that output power again, light sensation, first sensation, or what's comfortable. You essentially probably don't even have to turn this down, and you can just pull the pads off. Black will go on quads, red on hamstrings, and any movement is sufficient. If you want to do squats, as you can see here, that's perfectly fine. It's whatever you feel like is going to engage that muscle. It doesn't even have to be full range of motion. Just something to slowly open up and activate those muscles. So if you do have a patient, these particular steps might be good steps to get into an actual treatment, but maybe you want to do a warm-up first. This would be a good idea. Or if you have an athlete, he's perfectly or she's perfectly healthy, this might be something you want to start with before you actually get into your practice or whatever event they're going to do. And then, of course, that next one, now we're moving up from quads and hamstrings, and we're kind of climbing up here. As you can see, it's hip flexor, TFL area, and then, of course, right on the butt cheek, glute med, kind of going vertical on the glute med, and then just going along with that hip flexor area. Same thing, 2 sets, 10 reps, and then go ahead and switch that polarity if you are on the RX, and you can always, switch that, the pads if you wanted to run it with the PRS. And again, those moves are just examples. They don't have to be any of those moves. These are just suggestions. These are particular movements that we've been doing every Saturday with the athletes. And then, of course, finally, getting into this one, we're going QL and piriformis. So QL vertical, and then piriformis going horizontal. Same thing, not to sound like a broken record, but, just all you're doing is trying to lengthen. And in this movement, I probably wouldn't even do this RDL single leg. Instead of a single leg RDL, I'd probably just do like a really basic body weight, good morning, just kind of stretching the back. Even a toe touch would be good. You're just trying to kind of stretch out the back, the glutes, and even the hamstrings. But at that point, your hamstrings are now loosened. So you'll immediately discover how quickly that patient or athlete has actually already changed that range of motion just from some of these movements. And then, of course, that would be the final. Again, 2 sets, 10 reps, reverse it. And if you wanted to do it longer, you can certainly, what we've been doing, like I said, is 5 total minutes. And then we reverse it and we go 5 minutes again. Now, we're not doing movements during those 5 minutes. We maybe do a few reps and then we kind of rest in between, and we just do light stretches and, just kind of talk as we are getting that contraction. Any questions, Matt?
Yeah. The only question I have is like, okay, obviously that's a lot. So if you're, you got 10, 15 minutes, before a tournament or a game or a match or whatever, is there one go-to that you say, okay, let's get this one, like activate the lower back and let's get this one fired up? Or is there one in particular you say, okay, you've only got a few minutes, you're running late, let's get something fired up, even if you're driving to an event? What would you suggest?
If you can't do movements involved, I would essentially find the areas that are your tightest. And if the athlete didn't know, and of course the luxury of movement wasn't there, I would essentially go on lower hamstring and probably piriformis, so right on your butt cheek and then on your lower hamstring, and just loosening up that whole area. Okay. That tends to be a really tight area, especially the hamstrings and glutes. If you do have the luxury, even if I can run all through this entire thing that we just went through on this 5 on 1 off. You could do it in a course of like 2.5, maybe 3 minutes. Okay. So it doesn't require a long time. I'm not even turning the machine down. I'm pulling the pads off, putting them on, going through a quick movement. You maybe reverse. You don't necessarily have to. And you can do these 3 or 4 settings. You'd be surprised on how quickly it goes.
What about if you have kind of some knee issues going? Do you just go, where should you put that pre and post event?
Yeah, there's a couple of settings with knees, back of the knee, and then of course on just above the knee. So popliteus, and then going horizontal above the knee. Get old stretch Armstrong here if you can see that above the knee, just covering your
red above, black above.
Yeah, so this would be black above the knee, and then red would be on the back of the knee, just like this. So popliteus, and then just above the VMO and VL, right there.
Okay,
so that's a good one. You can always just sandwich it too. I've done this. So black medial, just like this.
Okay.
And red lateral. So you're sandwiching that area. Black is on the medial, and then red is on the lateral. And thank you, Sarah, by the way, for changing that view so they can see that.
And that's actually just doing you're just actually adding blood flow there. You're working you're kind of just getting blood flow into that knee area. Is that kind of what's happening?
Correct. That's it. And again, light sensation. And it's mainly about blood flow, light contractions. You don't necessarily want to tighten it up. You're just talking, you're just talking knees that need to be loosened, correct? We're not talking actual treatment and pain.
Or even after, post, you've got some knee issue. You just played a 2-hour match or something. Go ahead and slap that on there and kind of get some contractions going, but you're not doing a crazy workout because you just worked out for 2 hours. You're just getting blood flow into that area for recovery.
Correct. And, and also to that point, we've seen a lot of success from these doing foot bath as well. So,
Yeah.
if you have the time, like on a post day where you're finished with golf or pickleball or whatever it is you're doing, a foot bath's not a bad idea if you have knee pain, because I've seen a lot of knee pain subside from a foot bath, because it does have that ability to pull out inflammation from that too.
Good stuff.
All right. I promised COPD, and I don't want to miss it because I do think we have some time, and I know there's other questions. We'll get back to this in a second because there are some things I want to remind everybody on this. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. But one of the questions here was, how would you use this for COPD? We actually don't have a protocol for this, but when it came up, the first thing I thought of was the actual above and below. So let me get there.
Can you explain what COPD is?
I'm not a doctor, so all I know is it's a pulmonary with the lungs.
Okay.
So if you're having issues with that and you are struggling with COPD, this would probably be the one I'd go to. This would be also a good question that I can probably reach out to Dr. Sam Battaglia, because I don't know if he's ever treated it, but I'm curious if he has. He's probably tried all sorts of things, and I'm sure it's beyond this. But that would be my first suggestion, is something like that. Again, because it's just getting blood flow, and you're just kind of light contractions, and I think that possibly will strengthen the muscles around there as well.
Very good.
And then there was one more, I think. I have many friends with gout. Would the PRS help them with a quicker recovery? And a very quick response would be yes. I know that the RX has actually treated that before, and we've had some success with it. So anything along with that, the PRS is going to give you somewhat of results, especially if you're consistent. That's the biggest thing, is staying consistent with a lot of this.
If you had a PRS, where would you put pad placements for gout?
Just kind of, again, just sort of, surrounding that area. So I would always sandwich it, usually black medial, red lateral is kind of the go-to. I don't want to get too crazy with things we don't have actual protocols for just yet. And when it comes down to, like, when in doubt, sandwich it. That's often the go-to, because worst case, you're going to get some results just with blood flow, even if it's temporary. That's at least giving you some recovery and a better way of life, even for a short period of time.
Yeah, I think it's probably the one thing I've learned the most, and it was from, I think, the NFL trainer. I forget his name. Was it Gabe?
Yes,
Gabe. And if you haven't seen his Q&A, I highly suggest it. It's on our website. But basically, to summarize it, he tells all his players when they're on the road with the PRS, it's basically that.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong with just sandwiching the black and the red and get movement, and you'll get blood flow in there. And, you'll 9 out of 10 times it helps get a player or a person kind of functioning again. So
yeah, 100%. It's definitely a good suggestion. Last one here. How high on the PRS would you suggest for the active warm-up recovery? Any benefit from going higher? So this one is going to be a relative answer relative to whoever is using it. So higher for one person might not be that high for somebody else. I will say again, don't go to the point where you're getting into those contractions where you're literally compensating. You want something to feel comfortable. So when we're talking recovery and warm up, it's not treatment. Treatment is really where you're pushing that envelope, where it's like, all right, this is my max. I'm really struggling to maintain my form. And if you're struggling to maintain your form, that's too high for warm up and recovery. So
I got to tell you, that's a great question, because most people, it's like, oh, max it out. That's probably the first time I've heard you say, Jake, on the warm up and recovery, this is not treatment. This is, it's a comfortable non-compensation type of pattern that you want to get the blood flow working, and you'll pay dividends the day after, obviously.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I've learned this, I guess through the years as we used it. We do go at low levels on Saturday when I'm working with some of the athletes then, and the results have been astronomically better than just kind of cranking it up the whole week. And especially on these recoveries, it's just, again, know what it's for and then use it for that, and you're going to see better results.
Love it.
I think we have time for one more, Matt. What do you think?
Okay. Yeah, let's do this one more question because I want to hear the answers too.
PRS pad placement for arthritic hip pain. Oh, good. I didn't see this one, but that's a great question. I'm going to get old Stretch Armstrong involved in this one because this is one of my favorite ones. Hip issues. This is my favorite pad placement for hip. I like red on TFL area. That's about right there. So think about your hip flexor and just kind of go vertical. If you can see that. Thank you, Sarah. So right there in that location, that would be the red. And then, of course, black would be on glute med. So you're kind of getting that sort of call it that C clamp right around the hip. And you're just kind of covering that area with contractions and blood flow. I use this pad placement a lot. Not as much for arthritic pain, but other things with the hip. And this is my favorite. And it definitely relieves a lot of pain. Sometimes I'll just put that on with blood flow. So red in front, right, black in the back on glute med. So TFL, glute med, and light sensation on that.
Wow. What a show tonight, Jake. You are a rock star. As a matter of fact, it's like you're so knowledgeable. I'm like, how can I get training one-on-one with Jake?
That's a great question, Matt. It's like you knew what was coming. And let me get to this.
Look at this. And I just want everybody to know, I saw the e-blast or the email that Sarah sent out that promoted this one-on-one training. So I didn't know you were going to be this prepared, but fantastic.
I got your back. I got you covered.
Good. You are good.
Excuses are so 2023. So I got to tell you, if you own a PRS and you own an RX and you say you don't know how to use it, that's on you. We have all the opportunity. We have info@ARPneuro.com. We have ARPneuro that has all the videos that you can watch. You can check out our YouTube channel where it goes through multiple different protocols and performance protocols. But we also have this on the website. If you go to ARPneuro.com and you can sign up for a 15-minute class. A lot of people have been taking advantage of that this week. Feel free to do it. I don't care if you have a PRS. I don't care if you have an RX. I got to be honest. If you just have questions and you don't have either one and you're considering it, I will open it up to that as well. We want to answer your questions.
I know who's going to be starting to get very, very busy. His name is Jake the man. I love it.
Well, in my contract, I do still have a 1 p.m. nap time. So
good point. That's good.
Yeah, so just keep that in mind.
You'll never get Jake at between 1 and 1:30. He only naps for 15, but I think he relaxes for the other 15.
Correct. So there it is. No excuses here. Make sure you take advantage of this training and any other questions. We're always there for you guys. So
look at that. You got to throw that last one out there. Whoever T.O. Day is.
T.O. Day, we love you. Quick responses. Enjoy your fun banter. Thank you for your questions and your participation. You guys are awesome. So
Jake, as always, I learn every day with you, my friend.
Likewise. I appreciate you being here, Matt. I hope you enjoy your sandwich, and I'm gonna enjoy my steak.
Get at that steak. I love it. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much. Take care, everyone.